Hey, I just wanted to get on for a second. I thought of something and then I called my husband on it, who's my better half, and he explains things better because I was reading in the Bible and I just couldn't get past my beef with King Solomon. I was just so frustrated with him because he's supposed to be the wisest man and he does the dumbest things. And so I've been in James 1 all morning and we talked about it, but in James 1:14 it says, but each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. And so the trap is being desensitized by things. So King Solomon was the wisest man, but he would tempt fate. Like if you read Ecclesiastes, that whole book is about him tempting things, doing things, trying things just because he could. But he was prideful in the way of he thought, well, I'm the wisest man, so I know who God is or whatever. But we can know who God is, and God knows my heart, right? But our hearts are deceitful above all things because we can get desensitized because sometimes we tie it to emotion, right? And so my beef with King Solomon is that sometimes we need to be Bible scholars, right? And so, well, we should always be Bible scholars. And if you look at what a Bible scholar is, a Bible scholar is just the definition is someone who has profound knowledge on a particular subject or a student or pupil. So if you think about that, I'm a Bible student. I'm a student of the Bible. So you're a Bible scholar. So let's evaluate these things. Let's have the conversations. In Proverbs 31, the sayings of King Lemuel is the first part before you get to the wife of noble character. People think that that was a name that was referred to King Solomon. Now, I don't know that for a fact, and I'm not going to speak on that, but I could see where Bathsheba is saying, listen, my son, listen, son of my womb, listen, my son, the answer to my prayers, do not spend your strength on women. Your vigor will on those who ruin kings. It is not for kings, Lemuel. It is not for kings to drink wine, not for rulers to crave beer, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed and deprived all the oppressed of their rights. Let beer be for those who are perishing, wine for those who are in anguish. Let them drink and forget their poverty, and remember their misery no more. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the right of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. So that is Proverbs 31, verses 1 through 9, and then it gets into the wife of noble character. Bathsheba lost a child before him. This very well could be her. So she would be praying her son would be an answered prayer, because this would be like what we'd call the rainbow baby, right? The miracle after the loss of a child. And so my beef is sometimes we look at King Solomon as the wisest guy and forget that King Solomon had wives that he shouldn't have been married to. And so some people look at this as a racial issue, but it's an equally yoked issue. He wanted to please his wives, and so like the first one was like an Egyptian wife or something. So she brought over her Egyptian gods, and then he married another wife, and she brought her gods, and then so on and so forth. Well, he'd make them temples so that they could worship their gods. And they weren't even allowed because they weren't holy enough or pure enough. They were unclean, to go to his temple and worship his God. So you got a family divided. And so what happens when he has children? Whose gods are they learning? And so King Solomon, being the wisest guy, made the dumbest moves because he was desensitized by having it surrounding him all the time. That is why it matters what we are doing all day long. That's why it matters what we listen to, what we look at, and what we hang out with. And that's why, like for me in my house, we don't celebrate Halloween, right? We don't celebrate Halloween, that's not a thing for us because we ain't playing with the devil. And we're not going to entertain any of the other stuff. If you are at a different level and you want to celebrate that, that's your business. But we try to actively surround ourselves around God and what his word is because we don't want to be deceived. And King Solomon, super smart guy, deceived because his wives were into all the false gods, and they're bringing all that in their household. They're raising their children that way. They're doing the things that they're supposed to be doing apart instead of together. King Solomon is supposed to be the king head, the kingdom man, the head of the household. If you're the spiritual head of the household and someone's bringing a false god in, what are you going to do as the spiritual head of the household? Absolutely not. As for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. You don't allow the false god to come in and have breeding room. You don't build a temple for the false god. And so everything that we do today directly affects our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, generational curses, all those things. If Abraham and Sarah hadn't played God and had Hagar had a child with him, we wouldn't have the Quran today. We wouldn't have any of the Muslim issues that we have, because Ishmael is the reason the Quran exists. Like, we wouldn't have that. So what our ancestors do directly affects us. We are paying for the crimes of somebody else. So we got to be careful on what we do, because it's going to affect our grandchildren. It's going to affect whoever else. Now, I do believe this is the end times. It's feeling pretty revelation up in here, but we still don't want to test fate, and we don't want to buy into something that's not of God. We don't want to be desensitized to it. We're Bible scholars. We are in the Word every day, and guess what happens when we're Bible scholars and in the Word every day? I'm going to continue to grow, and as I'm growing, this verse I've read 100 times is going to hit me different. And I'm going to learn another layer of that. So we're going to continue to learn layers of God's word. He's going to minister to us differently in each season, and we're going to continue to grow. So be Bible scholars, and don't be worldly, and don't be surrounded by the things of the world. If you are convicted, when in doubt, throw it out. You know, like, if you are convicted, seek wise counsel if you have to. But King Solomon did none of these things, and we're still paying for it today. King Solomon was super wise, but yet the dumbest guy I've ever, like, I just got a beef with it. How do you have all these wives with all these gods, but you know who the one true God is? And I think some of that came in with pride. So let me know what you think. I'd be curious to hear. I got more, but I don't want to talk forever. I'm sorry. Love you guys. God bless you.